the self, the me, the ego,
Yeah.
whatever word we like to use, isn't that divisive? Isn't that exclusive, isolating process, this self-centered activity which causes so much disorder in the world? Isn't that the origin, the beginning of all disorder?
The origin being selfish activity.
Yeah, self-centered activity at all levels of life.
Yes, and certainly that's the way in which the patient comes in. He's concerned about his depression.
Yes.
Or his fear.
His fulfillment, his joy, his suffering, his
Yes.
agony, and so on. It's all self-centered.
Yes.
So I'm asking, if I may, is not the self the beginning of all disorder? The self, I mean, the egotistic attitude towards life, this sense of individual emphasis on the individual, his salvation, his fulfillment, his happiness, his anxiety, and so on and so on. So, why do you divide, if I may ask, society and being? As though society was something outside, which is influencing me, conditioning me. But I have my parents, grandparents, so on, past generations, have created that society. So I'm part of that society. I am society. Why do we separate it?
I think the reason why we separate it is that there are different kinds of society. If I'd been born in India instead of in England, I would have grown up in a very different way, with a different set of attitudes. And because we can think of ourselves growing up in different kinds of societies, and we'd be different if we had, that's why in thought, I think, we have the idea that society and me are not exactly the same. We'd always be in one society or another. So society as a whole, all societies taken together, we would only exist within society. But any particular society is in a sense an accident of our birth or upbringing.
But even that society is part of us.
Oh yes, I mean through growing up in it, it becomes part of us and we become part of it.
I want to abolish this idea in discussion, this separation from me and society. I am society, I am the world. I'm the result of all these influences, conditioning, whether in the East or in the West or in South or North, it's all part of conditioning.
Yes.
So we are attacking the conditioning, not where you are born or East or West.
Oh yes, the problem would be conditioning of every kind, our biological conditioning, our conditioning from society.
That's right.
Yes.
So personally, I don't separate myself from society. I am society. I have created society through my anxiety, through my desire for security, to my desire to have power, and so on and so on. Like the animal. It's all biologically inherited. And also my own individualistic activity has created this society. So I'm asking, I'm conditioned that way. Is it not possible to be free of it? Free of my conditioning.
Exactly. And if we start off with a heritage which is built into us, inherited, which comes from our biological past, and if we start with that, and we start with these societies that also have bad effects, some of them, and to varying degrees, and we just try to change the society, the other part, the inherited part, is still there.
And but cannot those also be transformed? I may have inherited what? Violence from the apes and so on and so on. Can't I change that? The inherited biological conditioning, surely that can be transformed.
Well, all societies, surely, seek to transform these biological drives that we have, and all processes of bringing children up in all societies seek to bring those drives within the control of the society. Otherwise, you'd have complete anarchy. However, these drives are always brought within certain social forms, and individual aggression is obviously discouraged in most societies. But can we say, is it really transformed? Doesn't it just come out again in the aggression of the society as a whole, and war and so on? So we can see that these things are transformed by societies, these basic drives that we inherit.
Tradition is part of that. We've said that that's the problem that we're up against now. Is it possible for him to change his nature, or do we have to deal with each of these problems particularly as they come up?
Well, what I was saying is that at the inner core of all the great religions of the world is a vision of this possibility of a transformation, whether it's called salvation or liberation or
Yes.
nirvana or what. There's this vision. Now, there have always been people within those religions who've had this vision and lived this vision. Now, they...
Sorry, go on.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, perhaps part of your radical rejection of all religion involves denying that. But if so, I would say why? Why should we be so radical as to deny...
I question whether they really, I may be sacrilegious, I may be an infidel, non-believer. I wonder if I am anchored to a certain organized belief, whether I can ever find the other. If I am a Buddhist, for example, I believe that the Buddha is my savior. Suppose I believe that. And that has been told to me from childhood. My parents have been Buddhists and so on, so on, so on. And as long as I have found that security in that idea, or in that belief, in that person, there's no freedom.
No, but it's possible that you can move beyond that framework, you see. Starting from within it, that you can move beyond
That means
it.
I wipe out everything.
It means you wipe it out. But there's a difference between an approach where you wipe it out from the beginning
From the beginning I'm talking.
and an approach where you start within it and go beyond it.
You see that big way, yes, I know this well-known argument. Which is important, breaking down all the barriers at the beginning, not at the end. I'm a Hindu. I see what Hinduism is, a lot of, all the rest of it. And why should I go through number of years to be ended? Why can't I finish it the first day?
Because I think you'd have to reinvent and rediscover for yourself a great many things that you would be able to get through more quickly if you didn't.
No, his question is, I am a living human being in relationship with him or with her. In that relationship, I'm in conflict. He says, don't go about religion and illumination and nirvana and all the rest of it. Transform this, live rightly here, then the door is open.
Yes, but surely isn't that easier said than done? Easier said than done. I mean,
I know it's easier said than done, therefore, let's find out. Let me find out with him or with you or with her how to live in this world without conflict. So just let's go into slowly.
Okay.
Why do I want to identify myself with something greater?
Because I'm not
Like
sufficient.
nationalism, like God,
I don't feel sufficient.
which means what?
Insecure.
Insecure,
Anxious.
insufficient,
Yes.
lonely,
Yes.
isolated.
Uh-huh.
I've built a wall around myself.
Yeah.
So all this is making me desperately lonely. And out of that conscious or unconscious loneliness, I identify with God, with nation, with Mussolini, doesn't matter, Hitler or any religious teacher.
Okay, or I get married, I have a job, I make a place for myself.
Yes.
And that's all also identification.
Yes. Why do we want to identify with something? No, basic question is why do we want roots?
To belong.
To belong. Mm-hmm. Which is also implied to become.
Yes.
So this whole process of becoming, from childhood, I'm asked to become. Mm-hmm. From the priest to the bishop, bishop to the cardinal, cardinal to the pope. Mm-hmm. In the business world it is the same. Mm-hmm. In the spiritual world it is the same. I am this, but I must become that.
Okay, what I am is not sufficient.
Why do we want to become? What is it that's becoming? I don't know.
Well, and the obvious reason for wanting to become is a feeling of insufficiency, inadequacy in the state that we are. And one of the reasons for this is that we live in an imperfect world. Our relations with other people are imperfect. We're not content for a variety of reasons with the way we are. So the way out of that seems to be to become something else.
Yeah, so why not? You see, that means escaping from what is.
Yes, but it may seem that what is something we have a need to escape from. There's something wrong with it.
So why not, all right, take the usual experience. I'm violent. And I have invented non-violence, right? And I'm trying to become that. And I'll take years to become that. In the meantime, I'm violent. So I've never escaped from violence, just an invention.
Well, you're trying to escape from it. You may escape in the end.
No, I don't want to escape. I want to understand the nature of violence, what's implied in it, whether it's possible to live a life without any sense of violence.
But what you're suggesting is a more effective method of escaping. You're not suggesting an abandoning of the idea of escaping. You're suggesting that the normal way of escaping, trying to become non-violent, is one way of doing it which doesn't work. Whereas if you do another method, where you actually look at the violence in a different way, you can become non-violent.
Escaping.
Well, you're changing then.
No, I am violent.
Yes.
I want to see what's the nature of violence, how it arises.
But for what purpose?
To see whether it's possible to be free of it completely.
But isn't that a kind of escape from it? Being free of something.
It's not an escape.
Why not?
Avoidance, running away, fly away from what is an escape. But to say, look, this is what I am, let's look at it. Let's observe what its content is. That's not escape.
Oh, I see. The distinction you're making is that if you run away, an escape in the normal sense is running away from something, like escaping from prison or one's parents or whatever. Yes. But they still remain there. What you're saying is that to escape, rather than escaping from violence, which leaves violence intact and still there, and you try and distance yourself from it, you try to dissolve violence or abolish it.
Yeah. Dissolve.
Yes.
Not abolish it, dissolve.
All right. So this is different from escape because you're trying to dissolve the thing rather than run away from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So running away is everybody runs away.
Well, it usually works to a limited extent.
No, it's like running away from my agony by going to football. I come back home, it's there. I don't want to go to watch football, but I want to see what violence is and see if it is possible to completely be free of it. Why am I hurt? because you say something to me which is not pleasant,
Well, why should that hurt you?
because I have an image about myself as being a great man. You come along and tell me, don't be an ass, and I get hurt.
What is it that's being hurt there?
There, the image which I have about myself. I'm a great cook, a great scientist, a great carpenter, whatever you will. I've got that picture in myself, and you come along and put a pin into it. And that gets hurt. The image gets hurt. The image is me.
Well, I feel that will not be terribly clear to many people. I mean, how can I be an image? You see, many people will ask, you see, how can an image get hurt? Because if an image is nothing at all, why does it hurt?
Because I've invested in that image a lot of feeling,
Yes.
a lot of ideas, emotions, reactions. All that is me. That's my image.
It doesn't look like an image to me, though. It looks like something real.
That of course, for most people is very real.
Yeah.
But that is me. The reality of that image is me.
Yes. Well, can we get clear that it's an image and not real?
Image is never real. Symbol is never real.
You're saying that I'm just a symbol.
Perhaps.
That's a big step.
Well, I'm in a different place and I have a different body.
Of
And
course,
in that sense, I'm different.
Of course, I admit that. I mean, you're tall, I'm short, or I'm brown,
Yes.
you're black, or you're white, or you're some pink, or whatever it is.
Now, at another level, I'm not basically different in the sense that we can all speak the same language and communicate, so there's something in common.
Yes.
And at a purely physical level, all of us have a lot in common with each other, the same kinds of enzymes, chemicals, and so on. And those indeed, hydrogen atoms, oxygen
Right.
atoms, we have in common with everything else.
Yeah. Now, is your consciousness different from the rest? Conscious, not bodily responses, bodily reactions, bodily conditioning. Is your consciousness, your beliefs, your fears, your anxieties, depressions, faith, all that?
Well, I would say that many of the contents of my consciousness, or many of the beliefs, desires, etc., I have, other people also have. But I would say the particular combination of experiences, memories, desires, etc., I have are unique, because I've had a particular set of experiences as you have and as everyone has, which makes a unique combination of these different elements.
So is mine unique?
Yes.
So is you.
Exactly.
But the uniqueness makes it all common. It's no longer unique.
That's a paradox. It's not immediately clear.
Why isn't it clear? I mean, everybody's unique, right?
Yes, we're all unique,
I question that.
but we're not unique in the same way.
I question.
Otherwise, the word unique becomes meaningless.
Otherwise,
Well,
life has
if
no
we're
meaning.
unique, each of us is unique. We have a unique set of experiences, environmental factors, memories, etc.
That's you just now said. That's common lot to all of us.
Yes, we all have it, but what we have is different.
Yes, you brought up in England,
Yes.
and perhaps another brought up in America, another brought up in Chile.
Mm.
We all have different experiences,
Yes.
different country, different views, different mountains, and so on.
Yes.
But apart from the physical environment, linguistic differences, and accidents of experience, but basically, fundamentally, deep down, we suffer. We are frightened to death. We are anxious. We are agonizing about something or other. And conflict, that's the ground on which we all stand.
But that doesn't seem a very startling conclusion.
No, it is not.
But I
That's
think say that what you're saying really implies that what we have in common is essential and fundamental rather than just superficial. You see, now I've talked with people about this, and everybody agrees we all have these things in common, but sorrow, suffering, and so on are not so important. The really important point are the higher achievements of culture and things like that, as an example.
Maybe the distinction is between the form and the content. Our contents are all different, and they have similarities and differences, but maybe the form is the same, the structure.
I would say content are the same for all human beings.
But you see, I can recognize that there's such a thing as common humanity, but I would regard that as quite possibly an abstraction or a projection rather than a reality. How do I know that's not an abstraction?
Because you go around the world, you see people suffer, you see human beings in agony, despair, depression, loneliness, lack of affection, lack of care, attention. That's the basic human reactions, basic human, that's part of our consciousness.
Yes.
So you are not basically different from me. You're tall, you may be born in England, I may be born in Africa with dark skin, but deep down the river, the content of the water, of the river is the water. The river is not Asiatic river or European river, it's a river.
Yes, well that's clearly true at some level, but I'm not quite sure at what level, you see.
I'm talking basically, deeply.
But you see, it seems to me, why stop there? That I can see something in common with all other human beings. But I can also, by looking at animals, see something in common with them. We have a great deal in common with the animals.
Surely.
So why stop at human beings?
Why
not say...
Because I say if I feel... I don't like the word common, that sounds... one feels that is the ground on which all human beings stand. Their relationship with nature, animals and so on. And that the content of our consciousness is, again, the ground of humanity. Love is not English, American or Indian. Hate is not. Agony is not yours or mine, agony. But we identify ourselves with agony. It's my agony, which is not yours.
We might go through it in very different ways, though.
Different expressions, different reactions, but basically it's agony. Not German agony and Asiatic agony. It's not what is happening, British and Argentine. It's human conflict. Why do we separate ourselves from all this? The British, the Argentine, the Jew, the Arab, the Hindu, the Muslim, you follow? Which all seems so nonsensical, tribal. The worship of a nation is tribalism. So why can't we wipe out all that?
I don't know. You tell me. Why can't we?
Because, again, we'll come back to the question. I identify with my nation because that gives me a certain strength, certain standard, certain status, certain security. When I say I'm a British, oof. So this division is one of the reasons of war. Not only economic, social, and all the rest of it. Nationalism, which is really glorified tribalism, is cause of war. Why can't we wipe that out? Seems so reasonable.
It seems reasonable on a level like nationalism, people don't think they're England.
Start from there.
Okay.
So can I live without comparison? When from childhood I've been trained to compare myself with somebody. I'm talking comparison, not good cloth and bad cloth.
Right. Talking about comparing myself.
Myself. With you who are bright, who are clever, who have got publicity, who got... When you say a word, the whole world listens, and I can shout, nobody cares. So I want to be like you. So I'm comparing constantly with myself with something I think is greater.
So this is where becoming comes from,
Yeah,
this comparison.
that's just it. So can I live without comparison?
Now, doesn't that leave me in the insufficient state?
No. To live without comparison?
Yes.
No.
Well, here I start off
Then
insufficient.
You understand, sir? Am I dull because I compare myself with you?
Yes.
Or bright?
Yes, you're dull because you compare yourself.
If by comparing myself with you, who are bright, who are clever, I become dull. I think I'm dull.
Yes.
But if I don't compare,
Then it
I am
doesn't
what
come
I
up.
am.
Well, you may not compare, but I may compare. I may say, you're dull.
All right. I say,
Then-
all right. You say you're dull. I say, am I? I want to know, what does it mean? Does it mean he's comparing himself with me, who is, you follow?
See,
The
yes,
reverse of
it'd
it.
be very frustrating, that. Yes. I mean, if one compared oneself with somebody and said, you're dull,
Yes.
and then they said, what does dullness mean? Yes.
The other day, after one of the talks in England, a man came up to me and said, "Sir, you are a beautiful old man, but you're stuck in a rut." I said, perhaps, sir, I don't know, we'll go into it. So I went up to my room and said, am I? Because I don't want to be stuck in a rut. I may be. So I went into it very, very carefully, step by step, and found, what does a rut mean? Sticking a groove along a particular line. Maybe. So I watch it. So observation of a fact is entirely different from the escaping or suppression of a fact. And if one loves, there is no need for security. You don't even think about security. If I love you, not intellectually, not because you give me comfort, sex, or this or that. If I really have this deep sense of love for another, what's the need for security? It's my responsibility to see that you are secure. But you don't demand it.
Yes.
But human beings do. And does that mean we don't love another?
Yes, it means that what we love is the...
Come, I love you because you give me something.
Yeah. You make me feel like I'm going to get that security which I crave.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we're skirting around this. Why? Why do I want security so that I feel completely contained? Without fear, without anxiety, without agony, and so on. Is fear the root of all this?
Well, we seem to have mentioned already several things that are the root of it. As the baby grows up and isn't loved, he feels the need for that. He remembers that. He tries to return to that or get that as an adult. He's afraid because he's not protected. And as an adult, he tries to get that
Also,
protection.
is it unconsciously we know that self,
Yeah.
the me, the ego, is really totally unstable.
You're saying that in its nature it's totally
In its
unstable?
nature, unstable. And therefore, there is this anxiety for security outside or inside.
Why do you say it's totally unstable?
Isn't it? Isn't our consciousness unstable?
It seems to have two sides to it. One side says that if I could just get such and such, I would be stable.
Yeah. And there's a contradiction to that. I may not be.
I may not be.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not yet, but I will be.
Will be.
Yeah.
No, much more fundamentally is not this self itself in a state of movement, uncertainty, attached, fear in attachment, all that. That's a state of lack of stability. Therefore, I'm asking, is that the reason that human beings unconsciously, knowing the instability of the self, want security, God, the Savior?
Wanting something absolute.
Yeah,
Lots of different things to hope will give us that
we
security.
create God out of, He's our creation. We are not the creation of God. I wish we were. It would be totally different. And when there's total attention, it doesn't exist anymore, confusion. It's only inattention that creates the problems. Refute it.
But sir, I
Take it
don't
around.
understand entirely what you're... This total attention that you're talking about would only be able to have this effect if it somehow was something completely in the present and devoid of memory.
Of course, attention is that. If you attend, now, just if I attend to what you have said just now, devoid of memory, which is attention, I listen to you not only with the central ear, but with the other ear, which is I'm giving my whole attention to find out what you're saying, which is actually in the present. Attention, in attention, there is no center.
Because
is
the
the self.
attention and the thing attended to become one, you mean?
Huh?
You mean there's no centre in the attention because the attention is all there is. The thing attended to and the attention is all there is.
No. There is messiness because I've been inattentive. Right?
Yes.
When there is the observation of the fact that the observer is the observed, and that state of observation in which there is no observer as the past, that is attention. So I think we ought to differentiate between attention and concentration. Concentration is focusing your energy on a certain point. Certain. And attention, there is no focusing on a certain point. It's attention.
Concentration seems to have a goal in mind.
The goal, motive, is a restrictive process. I concentrate on a page, but my thought, I'm looking out of the window, and I have to pull it back and keep on this business. Whereas if I gave complete attention to what I'm looking out of the window, that lizard which is going along the wall. And with that same attention, I can look at my book. Look what I'm doing.
Concentration presupposes that there's a controller in there pulling it back.
That's just it.
But then, if there's no controller of the attention is simply a response to whatever the present circumstances
Yeah,
are.
you insult me. I'm attentive. There's no recording that insult. Huh?
Yes, I said.
You flatter me. Oh, a marvelous talk you gave the other day. I've had this so often repeated. And I'm bored with it. So I'm not only bored, I see, what? So you follow, is it possible, really, that's a much more difficult question, is it possible not to record except where it is necessary? It's necessary to record when you are driving, to learn how to drive. Record when you do your business and all the rest of it. But psychologically, what's the need to record?
Oh, we're broken up, so we look at each little piece.
Yeah. And because we are broken up, we can never see the whole. Obviously, it seems so logical.
Okay.
So, is it possible not to be broken up? Why? What is to be broken up? This confusion, this mess in consciousness, which we talked about yesterday. You see, nobody wants to go so deeply into all this, right, sir? First of all, one hasn't the time. One is committed to one's job, to one's profession, to one's science, to one's whatever one is doing. And you say, please, this is too difficult or too abstract, not practical. That's the word they all use. As though all this, what you are doing, all is terribly practical. Oh, yeah. Armaments, is it practical? Tribalism is, oh, well, you know all about it. So, sir, let's move from there. Is silence of the mind a state of attention? Or is beyond attention? I don't know if I'm...
Well, what would you mean by beyond attention? Let's try to get into that.
Inattention is there. Is attention act of will? I will attain.
No, we've said that's concentration.
Yeah. So I'm asking you, is there, where there is attention, is there any kind of effort? Struggle? I must attain.
No.
What is attention? Let's go into a little bit. What is attention? In which is the word diligent is implied in attention, to be diligent, not negligent.
What does diligent mean? Careful. You mean careful?
Care, to be very precise. Diligent, what?
The literal meaning is taking pains.
Pain, that's right. Taking pain, which is to care, to have affection, to do everything correctly, orderly, not repetitive. Is attention demand the action of thought,